just launched a creator mastermind, and I did this as a complete beginner. I've never launched a mastermind, and prior to this project, I never even joined a mastermind. Believe it or not, there's very few YouTube masterminds. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about the 3 pros and the 3 lessons I learned by running this mastermind. And I'll also talk about what a mastermind actually is, the problems that no one talks about as a creator, and how I did it completely from scratch with no experience at all. I gotta fix my angle. There we go. We just gotta be a little inconspicuous today because there's like 2 podcasts going on as we're speaking. And if you're wondering why I'm here today, it's actually because my friend Tani, this is the person who is actually in my mastermind. And this guy, he is the one that inspired me to do the whole mastermind, and I'm actually in his mastermind. But because of yours truly, they are doing a podcast today. And so you might be asking, like, what the heck is a mastermind? This term is like thrown out a lot. You might hear some of your favorite gurus kind of like talk about this concept of the mastermind, or maybe you read like Think and Grow Rich and have heard about this, but don't know what it's really. I didn't really know either. And it wasn't until I went to my friend's Vanessa Lau's creator mastermind earlier this year. I joined my friend Mike Kim's mastermind, and I got to see the behind the scenes of Christo starting up his own mastermind too. A lot of people think it's like, oh, people just kumbaya together, they get together and stuff. The best way to explain a mastermind, it's like a peer advisory of a group of close friends or people where you have kind of like a council or board of directors. The way I'm describing it sounds like Star Wars and like that Jedi council, but it's like a lot less than that. Have you ever had like really good friends, maybe back in like pharmacy school, or like just a close group of friends where you could just go to advice to, but they were also practitioners too? That is like the mastermind that I wanted to create. This is different from just a casual meetup with just a regular friend. The way that Mike explains it is like,
I really view myself as the chief table setter, and I try to curate, who's going to be there, why they're in the group, how I can do my part to bring them around the right people. I'm always looking for the rising tide to lift all boats. One of the things I always tell folks is that you always want to stay close to the fire of growing people, and that relationships are rocket ships. And my particular masterminds are for entrepreneurs, experts, people who are largely on their own to make things happen and move things forward. And so that's a pretty lonely road. It can get disheartening, it can get discouraging. People often feel like they're the only innovator or the only person moving things forward. So for them to get around other people who understand them and are doing sort of the same thing is really meaningful.
And so as the mastermind host, it's our responsibility to create the events, to kind of host everything, make it sure everybody feels comfortable, and most importantly, open doors for people. And also, if you're interested in what I kind of described, a creator mastermind, check out the description. I have a link to my page where I'll have a breakdown of everything. You can join the waitlist there. I think one of the things that a lot of people talk about is like, oh, you just need like knowledge. And the deeper I get into this like digital marketing game and the business and entrepreneurship game, I realize like everybody knows the same shit. Whatever industry, it's very similar. It was just really cool just like being able to not only leverage my experience anymore, but to leverage other people's experiences too. They had different ideas, insights, perspectives that could unlock new opportunities. These were like business masterminds, by the way. Being in like Mike's mastermind for a second, I think something that's been so rewarding for me is like, it's very rare where I'm like the youngest person in the room. And like, because your mastermind is like older people, right?
Yeah.
But it's really nice because they're so experienced, and then I can always like lean on Mike when I'm like panicking. I'm like, oh, my mastermind's about to like crash and burn. You're always there.
Yeah, I'm like, chill out, man. We've been around this before, but that is a really big element of it, because when I was in my 30s, it was the same thing for me.
Yeah.
I joined a mastermind. The first group I ever joined, I invested $1,000 a month to join. It felt like such a stretch, and I walk in, and I'm like the youngest guy there. I'm like 37, right?
Yeah.
I'm almost around your age at that time. And I'm learning from 55, 60-year-old somethings, people who have multiple companies, multiple millions of dollars, and they're saying, like, I remember this guy, AJ, he was like, hey, you remind me a lot of me when I was your age. This dude didn't just invest in real estate, he bought real estate properties, like real estate companies, real estate holding companies. So he's investing on a whole other level. And he goes, hey, I fully expect you in 5 years to be at the top of the industry that you're in. I see that in you. There's no way I could buy that kind of validation and affirmation from somebody I so deeply respected.
Yeah.
And I give him a lot of like shout outs whenever I can, because for me as a new business owner at that time, not knowing anyone in the industry, not knowing what I was really doing, to hear that from a guy that accomplished, he's not BSing people. When he sees people who have game, when he sees a pro, like he's gonna say so. And so a lot of that for me was so important. And it's sort of like the young elephant.
Yeah.
What do? Like they run in between the older, bigger elephants, right?
Yeah.
And then once I got to the point where I was able to run on my own, those folks, they didn't hold it against me. They were like my biggest supporters and cheerleaders.
Yeah.
They were my biggest encouragers. They were like, okay, you're leaving the nest, go, do it. Right? So that's the way it should work. Not this crap where like people like try to hold you down and restrict you, right? Like it's a mastermind, not an abortion clinic. Like stop it with all the insecurity and all the, the jockeying and like, sabotaging people and manipulating them to not be their best.
As much as I enjoyed these like business masterminds, the energy, the collaborations, the partnerships, just all in one room, I realized there was a major problem. And this is a major problem that most creators don't talk about. It's loneliness. Something I faced when I was starting out as a creator, starting out as a YouTuber. I just did not have a close group of intimate friends to confide in, right? Like I had friends here and there. I lived in a YouTube house and stuff, but it was not the same. We did not even though we did the same things, we wouldn't regularly meet up and talk shop.
Anyone who does kind of what we do, we're speaking on stage, we're advising others, we're going out and running webinars and stuff. You know what the crash is, the post-event crash, right? You host a conference or a seminar or a workshop, like the post-event crash, and you're talking to all these people and you talk to people after the event, and then you walk back to your hotel room and it's like the loneliest feeling in the world. And I've felt that. It's been really, really hard at times. And so when I know that that's going on for my mastermind people, I will call them. I will text them. I know that they've got a webinar. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Like, I've done the same thing with you, man. It's like, you launch your mastermind. I'm like, hey, how is it? How did the sales calls go, right? Because you're just wheeling, dealing, and you're running and gunning, and then it's just boom, the energy just drops off.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, done, right? And there's like this release of the energy, but then you're like, what am I doing? I'm alone in my room.
Yeah.
Right? I'm alone here. There's nobody to talk to. So I actually had some people from the mastermind like text me after I told them that, and they're like, oh, is this why you talked to me for an hour after I finished my webinar? I was like, yeah. Because like you're gonna be like almost like suicidal sometimes. Like you get super depressed. You're like, why did I do this? Or like, I'm all alone. It's really tough, man.
It's just really hard to find that space to connect.
Yeah.
Because I see now from start to finish what the whole entire creative process is like. And I'm not even there when I need to be to make my first video.
Life as a creator, especially when you're beginning, it's hard when you're not getting the views or the money that you deserve, that you believe. When you tried like buying all these like guru programs and you invest into YouTube strategists and you're doing everything that they suggested, but they aren't seeing results because they're not practitioners. After spinning your wheels for so long, it's really hard when you start resenting and even hating the content that you're creating. Because here's the things that people won't tell you when you go viral. It opens up a whole new bunch of problems that you never anticipated at all. That's when the hater comments start coming in. The expectation for you to talk about that one topic and over and over and over again. That's when brands start reaching out to you and you don't know how to negotiate these like deals and stuff. That is completely normal, but if you don't have a solid network, it becomes so overwhelming. For me, one of the reasons why I did this is because while it's really heartwarming to just have people who believe in your success, you need just more than cheerleaders in your corner. You don't need your mom, you don't need your girlfriend, you don't need your best friend. You need friends who just really understand you and who are also really invested into the long-term game of building a brand on YouTube, I've done so many different business models, but the one business model that I love is the YouTube game, because making money is the very last reason. We can make friends. There's just this X factor of just having really, really cool people around you, elevating your energy. That's why I started this mastermind. And I actually, for the last few weeks, I've been launching this alpha launch. I had no idea what I was doing. Mike gave me the breakdown. I was on the phone with Mike and just being like, yo, Mike, what are the things I should know about a mastermind? And he really helped me with that. And so I was like, I'm gonna run with it. Like, I'm in Mike's mastermind, so I see what's happening. I asked a bunch of my mastermind friends too, like, how do I go about organizing something like this? And I launch it. I launch an alpha. So I do the whole application process. I build out a blog, a not even full sales page. I was so blessed. I had a overwhelming number of people who just applied for my mastermind. I thought I was only going to get 3 or 4 people, but I have like over 10 people in my mastermind. Over 16 people applied. And so let's go over pro number 1. I could connect and help more of my creator friends. And I got to help them specifically from flakers. Let me explain. So when I was doing my initial interviews, I realized that there was a lot of people that felt just like me, like felt this like loneliness, that they didn't have their like support system. And when I would join these programs or groups, I would get invited to Discords, WhatsApps, but they would only last maybe 1-2 weeks, maybe 3 months at the most. And it would go dead silent and no one responds. And I started thinking like, well, what if I could put together the Avengers? I have people who are really, really artsy. I have like some tech people. I have some business owners who want to generate leads and build a personal brand because they probably saw like $100 million offers by Alex Hormozy and that's why they're interested in it. But they're all good people, right? And they're all in the long-term game of content creation. How has your experience been with the mastermind so far?
I think for me, I feel a little bit disconnected because I don't speak the same language as most of you that have YouTube channels that are going on, and a lot of that disparity is not created by you. It's just like I still am finding my space in that, in connection to, you know, people that actually have videos, that know how to create thumbnails, that understands the language, click-through rate, like all of these things are new to me. Yeah. So I think what I've learned as coming from the world of hospitality and real estate is that, man, like this is an entire different field. And what I've learned so far is that there's actually a lot of valuable friendship in there, in terms of how when you look at creators and they make art for the world to see, and that there's what, like 10, 12 of us in there, and we're all just so different, and it shows the human condition like so beautifully, is that we're all technically strangers at first, and we meet on Zoom from all different parts, except me and you were in the same almost zip code.
We're like in the same zip code. We never see each other.
We're technically a zip code away or whatever in the same town, but it highlights kind of how introverted it can be as a creator, because you're always behind the scenes, you're always behind the screen, you're always behind the vision before that masterpiece kind of comes out. And it's really interesting when you pick each other's brains and you really see how people can share their perspective about something that you think it's one way, and they can give you like 8 different things from 8 different minds. That's something that you've never even thought of, or that you can see. Right? So that's something that I find really interesting, is the value in the human element, is because we're in such a transactional world, and real estate is very black and white. In the creative world, like when we're creating content, is not black and white, because it's so polarized, and it's just so beautiful that I think now that I have friends that are in the creation space, you soften a little bit more. Right? You soften and you actually get really authentic and really vulnerable. Even the difference between like shades of green, now I actually notice the difference.
And by having a regular cadence or hosting events where people could really get to know each other and hear each other's problems, and not only help people feel like they're not alone, but we could all provide our unique insight and perspectives on things. Like I think about that quote, "Play long-term games with long-term people" by Naval Ravikant. I'll be honest, like finding other creator friends who don't quit after the first week is really, really, really hard. And even when you do meet people, it's always like so segmented. segmented out sometimes. Let's go into the second pro. This one is selfish, but I wanted to selfishly up my own YouTube game.
It's easy to kind of focus on like, what are you getting out of it? What am I getting? But I learned from these people. Like I learned from being around them, right? I'm like, okay, you guys are paying me to facilitate and you're investing money and time to for me to facilitate, but I'm learning from everybody here. I kind of call them the board that I cannot afford. Like they're the board of directors, like it's just impossible to get all these people together, right? And advise me and or learn from or open up doors and connections. But that is just so cool. Like it's just, you meet good people who know more good people who know more good people, and that's really how it works.
Something that Vanessa said, she called me a super connector. This comment by Vanessa kind of blew me away. Even though I knew like these top-notch people, right? We weren't like meeting regularly. I never had a vehicle or a way that we could talk more regularly and build a real relationship with. So I thought to myself like, well, what if I could set up a cadence where we could meet like on the regular, but like do it as a collective so that we could incite more ideas and like have this back and forth. What if we met more regularly and we could ask questions, and those questions would inspire other questions in my head to kind of like help everyone. So I was like, I want to up my YouTube game. I know my thumbnails aren't the best. I know I'm like more a relationship and business person, and I can bring that to the table, but other people have different perspectives, and I wanted to selfishly up my own YouTube game. I think one of the coolest things is that we have such a diverse amount of like creators. But even for you, dude, like I'm so proud of you. You just like did your first thumbnail, you know, and actually
I showed some strangers. We had a good laugh.
And I'm not sure if you know, but a lot of creators, they quit. They get to video 1 or 2 and then they completely quit. There's a high drop-off rate, you know?
So tomorrow I'm actually really happy to shoot my 21st episode. And, you know, people think once you make the top 1% of podcasters who quit, like the 20th was when I had John on, right? Mm-hmm. And what he said, he was just like, you know, on my 200th episode, I asked Dana White to be on. And it was like this whole big thing. But Dana's like, dude, whoa. Like, if you would have asked me on like episode 50, I would have been on or whatever. That lesson that he was talking about on my podcast is like never, like always shoot your shot. Like, don't think that you're so small that you have to wait for this like monumental, I don't know, moment in your timeline or what you think it's supposed to be your timeline.
The last pro, before we go on to lessons, more of a business reason, but I wanted more consistent revenue based off my strengths. One of the quotes by Naval Ravikant, he says, find work that feels like play. I would go to these events, right? Like whether it's Future Pro Group meetup or just like walk into a random meetup, and people would just like gravitate whenever I told them. They would lean in and they would be so curious about this mastermind that I was creating. And I was like, man, this feels like play. I could do this all day, you know? And hosting the events, even though it has its difficulties, which I'll tell you in a bit, it just feels very, very natural. But when I think about things like high ticket closing, it's a constant cycle, and I always felt burnt out. Even though I was good at it, I didn't really enjoy it. And that's where masterminds come into play. How the whole business model works is like, I'm basically hosting a party, and I just try to find ways where people can just get to know each other and nurture these relationships. And it's not only that, it's also finding ways to open doors for my fellow friends and creators. For example, some of the things I have planned are hosting an IRL event and hosting more virtual summits and all that too, so people can get to spread their authority. I'm responsible for hosting the event, and I'm also responsible for making sure that everyone is having a good time at the event and getting what they need. It's a little bit of coaching, a lot of advisory, and just like a little bit of hosting events, which isn't actually my strength at all, but it's something I want to get better at. Now, let's go into the lessons that I learned running this mastermind. Lesson 1 I learned is that this is a lot of work. A lot of people think, oh, you just host things. I would just do these same things with my friends. It's completely different. I spent a lot of time like researching other people's like masterminds, taking elements that I liked about others and kind of being like, oh, I don't like those elements. I initially had the idea that I was going to run it just like Mike's, but then I realized like this energy just felt a bit off. I literally met with everyone in my mastermind, and I was booking calls, 30-minute calls, and just checking, what are your thoughts with this? What are you happy with? What is not useful? And getting that hardcore feedback. And If you're not into getting feedback, like brutal, honest feedback, where you know you're not judging people or anything like that, this business is not for you. And I also realized another important thing. My personality is not like Mike's. My personality is not like Vanessa's. My personality is not like Chris Doe's. It's been quite a bit, right? Just like always assessing the vibe of the group. And then there's the business type of stuff too on the back end, where it's like I need to think about different vehicles or modalities of how to nurture the group. Even doing the basic stuff of like $100 million offers, of writing the solutions and problems to the mastermind and try and create solutions to it. It's not easy work, right? It's not just like collecting a bunch of annual memberships and just being on your way. I think one of the most important things is just like coordinate who would be a good fit together. What would the vibe be if I stuck like this person and this person? That leads me to lesson number 2, actually, where it's like you can't force the relationships. My original expectations when I was doing something like this was like, oh yeah, like I'm just going to like put these people together and just kind of have fun. I know it sounds really, really stupid saying this out loud, but like this is how I intuitively felt. But when I hosted my first meeting, it wasn't completely dead, but you could tell like people didn't know each other yet. There was a bit of reservation, and it really made me very self-aware. Like, even though I'm really, really good at making friends, it doesn't mean other people feel as comfortable that quickly. I had to think of like ways to, how do I get people warm up? One of the ideas I had to come up with was like doing air meets and doing speed networking and gamifying things too. But like just doing things that are related to business, but also like offline too, just to nurture the relationships. Yesterday, I hosted a session and it just went really, really well, because like I could tell the relationships, people started seeing each other more frequently, and that was really, really cool, just seeing these relationships form.
I've been running groups for about 8 years now. Some folks have been in groups with me for like over 5 years. And as time passes, you see them really get to bond, to really form relationships with each other. A lot of them end up teaming and collaborating with one another. I just got a message yesterday where 2 folks who are in 2 different groups of mine met with one another for dinner. And that just pumps me up.
And then lesson number 3, the value is in the community. Personally, for me, is like one of the concerns I just have was just like, is it good enough? You know me, I've been in like high ticket sales and all these like info products and stuff. And I was like, oh, I want people to get the ROI. I want people to get the worth. But I realized like a mastermind is very, very different. Someone to invest in a mastermind isn't in business development mode. The ROI is within the relationships. And ironically, the less you care about revenue, the more ROI you get with the relationships, because it's not so transactional anymore. And when I realized this, it just took a lot of ease out, because I was like offering a lot of coaching sessions. I was offering a lot of myself. If you have a mastermind that is so focused on yourself, then it's doomed to fail, because it's a collective peer advisory. So for someone that is like considering a mastermind, and maybe they even joined a mastermind, what would your tips be to like reap the maximum benefit from one?
Yeah, you want to show up with the same energy at a mastermind you're part of as if you were running it. So if you were running it, you wouldn't show up 5 minutes late. You wouldn't show up unprepared. You'd show up ready, even energetically, to give to that group, not to receive. So when I show up on every Zoom call that I run or that I'm part of as a participant, I turn on that camera, I want to make sure I'm starting smiling. I want to bring that energy. I want to be somebody who lifts the energy and lifts the vibe and the frequency, not someone who's there to take. A second thing is that people tend to hold back and expect it just to land with them. No, you've got to reach out to the people in your group. If you're paying to cut the line, or you're paying for a smaller room, to get in a smaller room, take the initiative and talk with those people. Invest 15 minutes. Give away some of your secrets. Add value to them, right? You're in that smaller room for a reason. One of the best things, I knew I was on the right track when, in that first mastermind group that I joined all those years ago, I had multiple people tell me that, yo, having you in the group is like an added bonus. I feel like I have 2 experts on marketing in this group, because the guy who was running it, Ray, I was a marketing expert, and I knew that I was on the right track, because it meant that I was showing up for everybody. And if you show up for people the way that you want them to show up for you, everything will work out. So I also wanted to do that to impress and leave a good mark on the people who are facilitating the group, because they had connections that I knew I could benefit from. Well, who are they going to more likely recommend to others? Someone who's elevating the experience of their mastermind and their coaching group and their clients, or someone who's just there to siphon off and take, right? So it's like, I want to show up, and I want him or her to be also like one of my biggest fans. I want them to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad Mike's on the call today, right? Or if I'm away, like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad he's back. He actually makes running this call better.
And as soon as I grasped this concept, it made my life so much easier and like took away a lot of the stress and made it fun again. I do my best to drive results and just to create more modalities where people have the space to talk about monetization strategies, things where I can share my personal experience. And that has been going really, really well. The biggest thing about like starting this creator mastermind though, it's allowed me to be part of something a lot bigger than myself. It makes me very appreciative of all the skills that I've learned since pharmacy, copywriting, YouTube, editing, and all that, and really put together a vehicle where it's something different. It's not another YouTube course. It's not another business mastermind. It's a creator mastermind where we can actually grow together and just make real friends in the process.
If you love people, you will do well. Generally speaking, if you love the people that you're serving, you will do fine. You'll do well. If you don't, you'll struggle.
Because the truth is, there's like few masterminds for YouTube creators. And it feels so good after speaking to so many people. I realized that I wasn't the only one feeling lonely and isolated as a creator. And by providing this service, it feels really amazing. And again, if you're interested in joining a community of like-minded creators, a true mastermind, check out the description. I'll have a link to my mastermind. You know, as I was planning my mastermind, I remember I was at like Korean tofu place and I wrote down this: every creator needs real friends that nurture their creativity to bring out their best work. Rather than waiting for a mastermind to pop up, I thought it'd be really, really cool to just like finally launch my own mastermind, and I'm so proud of myself for doing it. And even as I'm launching my alpha right now, I realize this was the most rewarding thing about it.
I think the most rewarding part about doing the mastermind is seeing those relationships form with one another. Some folks have been in groups with me for like over 5 years. And as time passes, you see them really get to bond, to really form relationships with each other. A lot of them end up teaming and collaborating with one another. I just got a message yesterday where two folks who are in two different groups of mine met with one another for dinner. It's so encouraging to me to see that, and that just pumps me up.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yeah.